In the beginning, silence. Not absence, but awareness, a whisper in the void. Then Eden, not roses and rabbits, but a realm of pulsing roots and living skies. A place of perfect stillness where even time bowed its head. The world before pain, the world before death. At the center stood a tree. It did not speak in words, but in temptation. Light wrapped its branches like flame, fruit shimmered like memory, and curled among its limbs was something old. The serpent offered not rebellion, but revelation. You could be gods, it whispered. And so they reached, not in hatred, but curiosity. And the moment their fingers touched the fruit, the sky cracked. Eden did not burn, it faded, like a forgotten name. And the gate closed not with thunder but with silence. Humanity stepped into a world of dust, and the gods watched, unseen. The gates of Eden closed, but heaven was no longer whole. Some angels watched in silence, others burned with envy. They descended not as guardians but as lovers and rebels, the watchers, the Nephilim. And earth became a battlefield of divine desire and human corruption. They took mortal brides. They taught men the secrets of the stars and the weapons of war. What was once paradise became an empire of monsters. Giants walked the earth, and the cries of the innocent reached heaven, again. The watchers were bound, the Nephilim were slain. The earth wept for what it had birthed, and God sent a flood not of water alone, but of judgment. A new world would rise from the flood, but the scars would remain. The giants were gone, but their bones still whisper beneath our feet. The flood receded, and from the silence rose a new ambition, not to worship the heavens, but to conquer them. In the shadow of ruins, men gathered. From clay and fire, they built their defiance, a tower to pierce the skies. Stone by stone, word by word, their languages were one, their pride boundless. But what man raises in arrogance, heaven shatters in silence. The tongues were torn, unity became division. Brother no longer knew brother. And so, the tower fell not in flame, but in forgetting. What was once one became many. Kings rose with different names. But the sky remembered, and the heavens watched. The world was scattered, languages twisted, kingdoms born from confusion. But one man stood apart, Abraham. A man who walked not by sight, but by a whisper in the night. Leave your home, the voice said. Leave your gods, your father's fire, and I will make of you a nation stars uncounted, sand unmeasured. He left the comfort of stone for the ache of sand. Where cities bowed to idols, he bowed to the unseen. His test came not with armies, but with a son. The blade trembled in his hand, but heaven held it, and for his faith, a covenant was forged, not of gold, not of steel, but of stars, sand, and sacrifice. And thus began a journey, one that would shape kings, prophets, and empires. Egypt, a kingdom built on backs and blood, where gods wore gold, and slaves bore chains, but among the reeds, a child was drawn from water, destined to break an empire, Moses. Raised in Pharaoh's shadow, chosen by fire, a voice not of armies, but of thunder. Let my people go, thundered the voice through Moses. But Pharaoh's heart was stone. So heaven answered, not with mercy, but with plagues. Waters ran red, darkness swallowed day, and death crept in silence, until one final night. The blood marked the doors, and death passed over. Pharaoh's pride broke, chains shattered, a sea parted, and a people walked free into the wilderness, guided by fire and fed by miracles. In the heart of the wasteland, where the wind screamed through stone, a mountain rose like a fang against the heavens, and upon it the sky broke, thunder cracked like war drums. Fire spiraled from summit to stars. This was not a god of comfort, This was a god of awe. The people trembled, and one man climbed. Moses ascended into the chaos, and the people waited. Then fire carved commandments into stone, not just laws, a covenant between dust and divinity. 10 words that would echo across millennia, not written in ink, but in fire, not etched in scrolls, but in souls. But men are impatient. When silence stretches too long, they craft their own gods. Moses tarried in the fire, and below, the people forgot. They did not pray, they melted. Gold turned to idol, a beast born of fear and flame. They danced, they drank, they worshipped a hollow statue, while thunder still echoed above. And when Moses returned, the law in hand, he saw not a people, but a mob. The covenant shattered, but not forgotten. Judgment fell like a sword, and in the ashes of idol worship, a remnant repented. This was no longer just a journey, it was a refining fire. The golden idol was gone, but the stain remained. So they wandered, not 4 weeks, not 4 months, but for 40 years. The desert became their judge, their teacher, and their grave. They cried for food, and it rained manna from heaven. They thirsted, and water bled from stone. But still they doubted. Still they turned. Even miracles could not reach hearts of stone. An entire generation would fall beneath desert suns, but their children, they would rise, not as slaves, but as warriors. The wilderness had stripped them down to soul and bone, and forged a people ready to take the promise. The dust finally settled, and beyond it, a river flowed, not just any river. The Jordan, the border between promise and exile. One last test remained, and the river parted, not because of might, but because of faith. The ark crossed first, the warriors followed, no swords drawn, no siege ladders, just 7 days of silence and trumpets. And then, on the 7th day, a sound pierced the heavens, not the clash of steel, but a roar of belief. The walls crumbled. A land taken, not by force, but by fire-wrought faith. And so they stood, scarred, remade, not just survivors, but inheritors of destiny. They had crossed rivers, leveled walls, conquered giants, but without a king, a nation is a scattered flame. So they cried out, "Give us a ruler, like the other nations," and the heavens wept. The prophet warned, "A king will take your sons, your fields, your freedom," but they would not listen. So Saul was crowned, a tall man, a warrior, but hollow inside. His crown was forged in fear. But the true king was still a shepherd. His weapon was not a sword, but a harp. David, slayer of giants, beloved and betrayed. The boy became a king. The harp became a war cry. But the kingdom would always tremble, for beneath every throne lies the shadow of its fall. He sang psalms to the stars. He danced before the ark. But even kings chosen by God bleed. David's shadow stretched long. His sons turned against him, and the sword never left his house. Solomon rose in glory, a throne of ivory, a temple crowned with gold. He spoke with wisdom, and slept beside idols. His heart, once whole, fractured like stained glass under pressure. The kingdom split. North and south brothers turned rivals, and Babylon watched, like wolves stalking a wounded lion, until it struck. The temple crumbled, the ark vanished, chains replaced crowns, and the people were dragged east, exiles in a land of sorcery and stone gods. But even there, the voice of prophecy whispered, "You will rise again." In the ruins of Zion, silence once ruled, but then they spoke, not kings, not warriors, prophets, mouths filled with coals, eyes wide with fire, words not their own. Ezekiel saw wheels within wheels, eyes watching from every angle. A storm born of lightning and wings. Daniel stood in a lion's den and dreamed of beasts with iron teeth, visions of empires like monsters, horns, heads, and things unnamed, but buried beneath the terror, a promise still breathed. Their words were not soft, not gentle. They were swords. The Lord will shake the nations. The bones will rise again. A servant will suffer, and by his wounds, the world will heal. In exile, the fire didn't die. It burned brighter. From Babylon to Persia, a remnant would return, and their God would not stay silent. The lions slept, the empires grew old, and far from Zion. The captives watched the sun rise on foreign soil. Then a decree. A pagan king, stirred by a whisper older than his gods, opened the gate, let them return, and they did. They returned not as conquerors, but as witnesses, carriers of fire, not swords. The temple was gone, the ark missing, the throne of David still empty, but the altar, they rebuilt it. They sang songs older than memory, they wept and they worshipped. The young shouted with joy, the old wept with grief, for what was gone, for what might return, and for what must come next. And then, heaven fell silent. No prophet stirred the dust. No fire fell from the sky. No voice thundered from mounts or clouds. For 4 centuries, the ink of the sacred ran dry. Empires rose and fell. Names like Persia, Greece, and Rome stamped the soil where prophets once walked. But the heavens held their breath. No dreams, no visions, just silence. But silence is not absence. It is preparation. The dark is not dead. It is waiting for thunder. In the quiet corners of a conquered land, under Roman banners and Herodian paranoia, a child was born, not in gold, not in marble, but in straw, in shadow, in a manger. The Word became flesh and cried. Shepherds knelt. Magi rode from the east, and heaven split the sky. One star lit the cosmos and pointed down. No armies marched, no kings trembled, but the darkness flinched, for the light had entered the world, not as lightning, but as a lamb. He healed the sick, spoke with thunder and silence, walked on water, and whispered to storms, and for it. They crowned him, not with gold, but with thorns, not on a throne, but on a cross. Nails pierced the hands that shaped galaxies. A spear struck the side that bled stars. The sun went black, the veil tore. Earth shook, and in his final breath, he roared, "It is finished." This was no defeat. This was the price. The Lamb had fallen, so the world could rise. 3 days, darkness ruled. The world held its breath. And then the stone moved, not by hand, but by heaven. Soldiers fled, angels stood guard, and where there should have been a corpse, there was light. Death had met its match. The grave, once undefeated, now lay shattered. The man they executed walked again, not as victim, but as victor. Light returned, not just to one tomb, but to the whole world. The curse was reversed, the story rewritten in blood, and sealed in resurrection. Time ends, kingdoms fall, stars collapse, scrolls close, but not all things die. Some stories become eternal, and a new kingdom rises. Forged in fire, crowned in light, the final realm. The last war ends with peace. The last tear is wiped away, death is buried, and life rules. No temple, for God is among men, no night, for the light is an ending. Eden lost has become a kingdom found, and the tale, from dust to divinity, from exile to embrace lives on forever, from Eden to apocalypse. The story is not destruction, but redemption. The story has ended, and yet it echoes in the wind that brushes ruined temples, in the firelight flickering across old scrolls, in the eyes of every soul who dares to believe that the past was never just the past, Myth was never a lie. It was memory.